Joining our broadcast is Pavlo Lekachuk, head of military security programs at the Center for Global Studies, Strategy 21. Welcome.
Good morning.
Morning. Glory to Ukraine.
Glory to the heroes. Pavlo, let's start with the situation on the battlefield. How is the dynamic changing since there is good news coming from the Dnipropetrovsk region? There, near Kelia, 6 settlements have been liberated, but there is also some movement by the occupiers in the Donetsk region. What is the situation today? What can we say about the front?
Well, I guess we should start with the hard part. That's the East. First and foremost, the East. The Kostiantynivka, Pokrovska direction, heavy fighting for Kostiantynivka, urban combat. The situation is difficult, but if the enemy manages to take control of Kostiantynivka as a whole, it will allow them to continue advancing from the Pokrovske Kostiantynivka direction toward Dobrapilya or Drishkivka. Most likely, they'll try to push toward Drishkivka. This is the southern wedge, the northern wedge. This is the Lyman Sloviansk direction.
Here.
There is also a powerful enemy group operating here. They're basically trying to encircle Sloviansk, and they've already managed to push forward a bit there. This puts the area around Ryo-Alexandrivka at risk. A tactical pocket is forming there, which also poses a threat to the forces holding the defense. And overall, this fits into the unified plan of the Russian occupiers to encircle the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration. All of this is costing the enemy heavy losses. This is actually the main strategy of the defense forces, to wear down the enemy, because to carry out these infiltrations, they constantly need to replenish their personnel. But they don't have that capability. It is absolutely essential to systematically rotate and pull back those assault units for rest, refitting, and full recovery. The resources are limited. Obviously, I should also add the Kupiansk direction to this, because in the Kupiansk area, the enemy is also conducting active operations to push our forces out from the Oskal area, from the Kupiansk bridgehead. They're trying to split it into 2 parts, and after so many attempts, finally reach the Kupiansk railway junction. They've had some success, but it's coming at a very high cost. Will they be able to carry out their plan? It's hard to say. The situation in the south is significantly better. The enemy's had some successes, particularly in the Huyapol area. However, the activity of the Russian occupiers there is lower. And that's partly thanks to our counterattacks and counteroffensive actions. The armed forces of Ukraine, and as I see it, quite justifiably, are carrying out that very same logistical lockdown, which is being implemented both by drone units and other divisions of ours. This is cutting off the enemy's logistics, depriving them not only of personnel, but also of resources, ammunition, fuel, and lubricants, and their advantage in terms of firepower, in terms of artillery strikes, the Russians still have, compared to our defense forces, an advantage in artillery salvos, but this advantage has shrunk to a minimum, about 1.5 times at most. I don't remember anything like this before. Not in previous years at all. That's the situation on the main fronts right now. We also need to look at the north of Kharkiv region and Sumy region, where there are also local battles going on, but their intensity is much lower.
Pavel, let's get back to the successes of the Ukrainian armed forces at the junction of the 3 regions, Dnipropetrovsk, Donetsk, and Zaporizhia. A number of settlements have been liberated. Look, we're talking about the Russians' tactics, the so-called infiltration, as being successful in certain cases and in certain areas. Can we say that the Ukrainian armed forces, when capturing or liberating settlements, also use the same tactics?
Well, that's only natural. The thing is, the infiltration tactic, or seepage tactic, as it's called in various ways, actually originated from the way defensive lines are constructed. When the strong points of squads and platoons are connected to each other, forming a continuous defensive line, infiltration as such becomes impossible. That is, you can push through, you can break through the defense, but infiltrating right at the very intersections and junctions of these strong points, it is virtually and practically impossible to achieve. When the defense starts to become increasingly thin and stretched, when it turns into a point based, a dotted line, which is heavily protected and covered from the rear by advanced drone defenses, then seepage between these dotted points, it's a real move. And by and large, this dotted line exists not only for us, but for the enemy as well. The second factor that determines the tactics of both sides is the expansion of the gray zone. What people used to commonly refer to as the neutral buffer strip, located directly between the two opposing sides. The attacking and defending sides has now turned into a big, wide band where it's basically a mess. It's hard to say where the enemy's forward positions are, where our forward positions are. They could be behind each other's lines. And in such conditions, reconnaissance and coordination of these scattered units is extremely important. Whoever is more effective, who knows the situation, understands the layout of the positions and controls and manages them more effectively, that's who wins.
Pavel, let's also talk about Paris, since there is good news for Ukraine. Our country will receive licenses to produce weapons. We're talking about the SAMP system, the Italian French system, that will protect Ukrainian skies. But at the same time, Russia will soon have very powerful ballistic missiles that they will be able to launch them at a distance of 5,000 kilometers. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated this in an interview. As the head of state emphasized, in order to counter this threat, Ukraine is working on missile defense and air defense systems. According to him, tests are currently underway, but the priority is self defense. This project will be 100% European since Ukraine will be working together with France, Sweden, Denmark, Italy, Norway, and other countries, said Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. How do you assess how much we could actually strengthen, or what have we really gained? Is there anything interesting from Paris, from the military and defense news that could inspire optimism?
We have thoroughly mixed everything together here in this bowl.
Well, Russia's getting ready. It's clear that Russia will produce an attack, but we understand that now Ukraine has something to defend itself with.
First, aviation, the aviation component. If, as we look toward the future, we are actively strengthening and expanding our Air Force and focusing our efforts on it, we already have a formal agreement in place with Sweden for the acquisition of Gripens, which are highly capable light single engine fighter jets, and we also have our existing fleet of older, previously used F 16 aircraft. That's also a light single engine fighter jet, so according to the memorandum of intent to purchase Rafales from France. Now, these are large twin engine aircraft. Well, in addition, this approach is comprehensive and completes the picture. It's not entirely accurate to compare, but it's like the MiG 29 and the Su 27. Heavy and light fighters, they make up a comprehensive picture together. Now, it's obviously clear how we're going to build our Air Force, our fighter aviation. The second component is just talk for now. Both are about the SCALP missiles, which are cruise missiles. Everyone probably knows that the SCALP missile is used to strike enemy targets and has proven itself very well. And it's effective both against ground targets and naval targets. This is the second very positive point, and the third point is really air defense. Although probably we should even start with missile defense and air defense here. And there are two components to this. Not so long ago, during the summit in Ankara, the American president indirectly, in Donald Trump's style, stated the possibility of granting Ukraine a license to produce missiles for the Patriot air defense system. This is our main long range air defense system, capable of shooting down ballistic missiles. The second system we have that can counter ballistic missiles is the SAMPT and the New Generation I. G, the French one, which is equipped with advanced Aster missiles, this is a highly sophisticated anti aircraft system that has been specifically adapted for various naval and land based defense roles. Ground operations. We have fewer of them, but they also contribute to protecting the skies. Accordingly, the Aster 30, we really need these missiles. It's possible that competition has now emerged between the Americans and the Europeans after political. Military leadership started talking about the possibility of creating a European missile defense system, carefully taken into consideration Ukrainian missiles from the company Firepoint. This is the so called Freya project. And here, three factors come together at once. The first factor is a certain competition between the Americans and the Europeans, and we are getting involved in it too. That's also a plus. Which of these options will take off? Which one will succeed first? We'll see. But the fact that there are several competing projects for air defense is only a plus. It only speeds up the work. Second is that in all three directions, these projects involve cooperation with Ukraine, both in the production and operation of surface to air missile systems. And that also gives us this kind of technological framework. So, besides protecting our skies, which is first and foremost extremely important, this is also about developing our capabilities to protect both the European and our own skies in the future.
Those very Macs